Hello, everyone, and thanks so much for joining. We will be starting in just a couple of minutes. Okay, we're about a minute out from starting. We're just continuing to let attendees in, so we'll be starting very shortly now. Thanks. Okay, we're right at the top of the hour, and I'd like to say hello to all of you that are joining us. And thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule for our session today. Please leave your cameras off and remain on mute during the session. If you have a question, please post it to the chat box. If the panel doesn't have time to respond to your question, please reach out directly to the presenter. You can see that we have their contact information up now. And we will put the slide up again at the end. We hope you'll attend a power hour with us each day this week as we kick off LTC Awareness Month. Tomorrow, Tuesday, we welcome NAIFA's Senior Vice President of Government Relations, Diane Boyle. And frankly, given how much is happening on both the federal and the state level, it's not a session that you should miss. And then on Wednesday, we're going to have an executive roundtable with thought leaders in our industry. What is in store going forward? On Thursday, the focus is technology with a Shark Tank type session planned for you. And on Friday, our power hour will offer a case study on topics and options with which you may not be all that familiar. So please join us. Today, I'd like to get started by introducing our moderator, Steve Kane. Steve is Director and National Sales Leader for LTC Partners. He has just over 20 years of lots of success under his belt in the insurance and financial services industry. He works closely with his independent broker dealers, wirehouses, and employee benefit consultants. He's recognized as a thought leader in our industry, and he's very passionate about growing the awareness and the importance of planning for long-term care. Steve recently served on the board of advisors for CLTC. He is chair of NAHU's LTC Insurance Working Group and is a member of the state legislative working groups for both FinSECA and NAIFA. While Steve is an excellent sales guy, he's only an average golfer, but he does love it. So he tries to get out there as much as he can. So frankly, invitations are welcome.
Yeah.
Steve resides in LA, California. He's happily married with 2 daughters. A wife and 2 daughters. Well, so at least we know, Steve, you're a yes man.
I am.
Today's rapid fire power hour will cover living benefit products, wellness benefits, marketing to different generations, the lingering impact from COVID-19, the Washington Cares Fund, the LTC Awareness Month, and predictions for 2022. That's a lot to cover, so let's get started. Steve?
Thanks, Carol, and thanks everybody for taking time this morning or this afternoon, depending on where you're located, to talk about long-term care planning and what's in the pipeline. As Carol mentioned, it's our Got Milk campaign, right? It's our month, LTC Awareness Month, and again, we appreciate the time that you're spending with us today. And I promise you, you're gonna take something from it. I mean, how many Zooms, how many webinars do we all attend, even if it's not LTC Awareness Month, even if it's something else? And so my train of thought with these types of programs is that I got to take away a couple things. If I could take away 2 things and take them into my business, into my practice, then the hour was worth it. And with these speakers today, I promise you, you're going to get that. So rather than me read their long resumes or CVs, because I'm lazy, I would rather have them introduce themselves, provide us with, kind of a bio, a quick bio, where they're located, what's their background. So I'm going to start with you, Michelle.
Great, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity. My name is Michelle Prather. I'm located here in Indianapolis, Indiana. I am a senior sales director for OneAmerica, where I started with this product line back in 1998. So I'm in my 23rd year of working with asset care and annuity care, and have worked with a lot of, many different distribution partners throughout, bank partners, broker dealers, independents, and so forth, and now currently working with the career agency distribution that we have at OneAmerica. So thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
So Michelle, we know you're a lifer over there at OneAmerica, but tell us something we don't know about you.
Well, I was kind of trying to think of, what is something that most people don't know, and the only thing I could really come up with is I love movies, and I speak in movie lines often to family and friends. That's kind of a communication around my house. So I love movies.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Matt, tell us about you.
Yeah, I am Matt Gibson. I'm with John Hancock. I am head of strategic distribution initiatives here in Boston. And yeah, I've been at John Hancock. I'm closing in on my 18th year. Prior to that, I was with Sun Life, just a few minutes down the road, back when they still operated in the insurance business here in the States, for the first few years of my career after graduating. So it's been I guess I'm a carrier lifer in the immediate Boston area, I suppose.
Right. So we know you like Boston, and that's where you're based, but what else? Something fun.
Yeah, so I guess I would go with, I know a lot of people started doing sourdough during lockdown, but I'm actually about on year 8 on my starter that I've been nurturing for close to now, 8 years now. So
wow,
I guess I'm old school sourdough.
Awesome. I love sourdough. I just got to stay away from it. Ramona.
Thank you. I'm Ramona Neal, president of Living Benefit Review. I've been in the insurance industry for 30 years. My expertise is everything you'd want to know about the life insurance products and the long-term care life insurance solutions associated with it. I'm out of Ohio, married with 3 adult children. I'd say something that people don't know about me is English was not my first language. And when people look at me, they think, well, then surely she speaks Spanish. But I personally served in the military. I'm a military brat. And in fact, I speak German fluently.
Wow. Well, thank you for your service. And last but not least, Tony Massenelli.
Thanks, Steve. Tony Massenelli. I'm the director of LTC sales here at Nationwide. I'm based in Columbus, Ohio. Been in the industry for 21 years now, and almost 20 of those have been with Nationwide. So I am a lifer as well. I've been responsible for our Care Matters distribution here at Nationwide since 2013 when we launched our product.
Tony, everybody's like a Ohio State fan. Are you an Ohio State nut too?
I'm a big Ohio State fan, but that's definitely something that everybody knows about me. Something that people don't know about me is I'm a big believer in bucket lists. Since my high school senior year, I've had a bucket list of 50 plus things, and every year I try and check something off of that list, whether it's skydiving, running with the bulls, hiking to the bottom of the Grand Canyon, whatever that is. I drag my wife along with us on a few of those things, and if you ever meet her, you can ask her some stories about whether she liked them or didn't like them as we were going through them. So
that's awesome. All right, so I'm gonna think of some bucket list items. All right, let's talk living benefits. We're going to start with Ramona. She's got a few slides to share, but I know that not everybody on this webinar might really have a broad understanding or a detailed understanding of all the different options out there. So we asked Ramona to kind of come up with, what are you seeing in the industry in terms of sales trends? She's going to go over some of the products that are out there and available to you as an advisor. And then we've got some questions along the way. So Ramona, take it away.
All right, thanks very much. And thanks for the warm introduction as well. Just really going to talk about trends related to long-term care life insurance solutions and their sales applications. So specifically, we'll touch on hybrid link benefit products, long-term care riders, and chronic illness riders. I will say, as it relates to the riders, I think this is going to be a very, very important moment. And that is, if you don't know what type of rider you are selling today, then how can your clients know what type of rider they're buying? So when we get to that point in the session, we really want to focus there. To Steve's point on trending perspective from a market size per LIMRA for year ending 2019. So for year ending 2019, for total individual life premium sold. So 2019, total individual life premium sold, 30% of the time there was some sort of long-term care life insurance solution as part of that life insurance sale, whether it's a hybrid linked benefit product, a long-term care rider, or a chronic illness rider. And that, I think, is quite remarkable. So almost 1 in 3, anytime you had a life insurance solution, no matter a UL whole life, no matter the chassis term, there was some sort of long-term care solution associated with it. Now, for year ending 2020, long-term care solution sales were down by 7% year over year. So comparing 2020 over 2019. But to be fair, let's consider the context, right? 2020 was COVID, right? And as we know, a number of insurers suspended the sale or restricted the sale of long-term care solutions to older ages. So that is why I attribute we saw a reduction in 2020. So in general, just if I had to just make one statement, Steve, I'd say if you were to ask an insurance professional what the #1 trend in the life insurance industry has been, let's say the last 20 years, they'd probably say, I think the answer is index UL. And I contend the answer is long-term care solutions on a life insurance chassis, because they transcend all product categories. And so that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, just one observation, and maybe you could comment on it. We haven't like nailed it as it relates to the what we call these things. So maybe you could just define as you go through this what you're calling what, because sometimes I hear combination, sometimes I hear asset-based, sometimes I hear linked benefit or hybrid. What is all this stuff?
Yeah, that's a very good point. The naming conventions, it certainly would be helpful if as an industry that we came together and used the same terminology. I'm going to try to use terminology that advisors are going to know. And if you take, so I guess, Steve, I don't have a good answer for you. It depends on who you ask.
Right.
So combination products is a broad umbrella. So combination means it could be chronic illness rider, it could be long-term care, it could be hybrid. That's the broad umbrella. So it really does just depend on who you ask. Some people call, the hybrid linked benefit products hybrid, some call them linked benefit, some call them asset-based. It really, really does just depend.
Got it.
So if you take a look at this slide right here, so what I'm looking at here is from LIMRA for the first half of 2021. When you're looking at any type of long-term care life insurance solution, whether it's, if you look at the key at the bottom, whether it's a hybrid linked benefit product or acceleration for long-term care or acceleration for chronic illness. So no matter the chassis, term, whole life, UL, no matter the chassis, when you look at for the first half of this year of long-term care life insurance solutions and you try to break it out, in terms of what was sold most often, we see clearly chronic illness riders are most popular, right? They account for 50% by premium of the sales. And then hybrid linked benefit products account for 35%. And then long-term care riders account for 15%. Now, since we only have a couple of slides, I want to give a little bit of context here and a little bit of background and get to the point Steve asked me to, which spoke to trending. So look at the linked benefit, 35% by premium. So hybrid linked benefit products, the way I like to describe those is life insurance married with long-term care. Life insurance married with long-term care. And to that point Steve was making on the naming convention, one way to distinguish a hybrid linked benefit product from any other rider solution is the extension of benefits provision. So if you think about it, if I have a $300,000 hybrid linked benefit product, not only can I accelerate the entire $300,000, I can accelerate 400,000 or 500,000 or 600. I can accelerate more, 2 times, 3 times more. I can accelerate more than the initial specified amount. I can accelerate more than the death benefit. And that is what makes the hybrid link benefit products unique, is that you're able to extend beyond the death benefit. And if I look back and I reflect 20 years ago, 20 plus years ago, we maybe had 2 carriers in the marketplace, right? We would have had OneAmerica and Lincoln. Today, we have at least 9 companies in the market. So 9 insurers that offer a hybrid link benefit product and 2 more poised to enter. 20 years ago, single premium was the preferred premium pattern. And today you can see 5 pays, 10 pays, 20 pays, and 4 companies allow you to pay, up to lifetime, up to like age 100. Just a couple more comments here. And that is 20 years ago, you would have saw on a UL or a whole life chassis. And today you can see these products on an IUL and a VUL chassis. Yeah. Now, for those of you on the call, you might be thinking to yourself, well, we know we're in a historically low interest rate environment. Could it be that insurers are offering these products, the hybrid link benefit products, on a VUL or an IUL chassis because they're trying to shift the risk to the consumer? It's kind of a pessimistic, point of view. And I'm not saying that that's a wrong point of view, but I would just say a different way or more positive perspective to look at that. Since the benefit is still guaranteed, the base benefit is still guaranteed, you can use the underlying index or mutual funds to grow the benefit pool. So I would say from a trending perspective, what I see is, insurers are coming up with creative ways in this historically low interest rate environment to offer either an extended benefit duration in terms of years to pay out, or a benefit amount. And then the last really big point on the hybrids, I would say, 20 years ago, we saw exclusively reimbursement. And today, half of the carriers we see offer some sort of indemnity solution, including sometimes even cash indemnity.
Right. Hey, I want to stop you right there and ask one of our guests, Tony, with respect to the pricing changes. Look, we know where we are from a interest rate environment perspective. But when I look at products, like what's the shelf life on a product today that's not indexed or is not VUL? When you look at your product portfolio, do you say, hey, we can hang in there with interest rates today for 6 months, for a year, for 8 months? What are your thoughts when you look to product?
Yeah, when we're looking specific to price, and I'll kind of give you a time frame here. Our last reprice on Care Matters was in January of this year. We've held strong with price through the course of this year, and we don't have plans, I should say, to reprice for the first part of next year. So that's about a year's time frame. And when you're going through something like what we just went through, from a COVID component, from a market component that hit right around the same time as COVID, and then from an interest rate environment where we're in historically low and really lower for longer interest rate components, we do have to take a look at these types of products and make sure that we can still be profitable from a company standpoint and deliver on those benefits, because everything we put into that product is completely guaranteed. So when we guarantee that, we've got to make sure that we can earn the returns that we need in order to pay those guarantees 20, 30, 40 years into the future. So Steve, to kind of circle back and answer your question, we're going to continue to evaluate the product, but we try to hold on from a pricing standpoint as long as we can in the environment that we're in today. Yeah, and like I said, we're going to get more than a year's worth of time frame out of the existing pricing, which is right now in this environment, pretty
just
good.
One comment, then I want to jump to you, Michelle. If you're hearing the same thing, your product is on a whole life chassis with guarantees. But one comment is, as a distributor, and I hope I'm speaking for many distributors on this discussion, we understand. We get the pressure that you're under, and many of us are looking at this through a long-term lens. And so when you have to make these choices, we know it's tough. We know you don't want to do it. And we're much more understanding than we were in the past. Michelle, anything different from what Tony was sharing?
No, I think Tony's, correct. We are all drinking from the same interest rate fountain. So we all have to, adapt, and we have to adjust where needed. But also, like Tony, companies, such as OneAmerica, we've been offering these products since 1989. So a lot of that claims paying experience also helps us to know where we need to be, because we do have that data. But we're not immune to low interest rates. So anything that can be done to be creative, to help, to innovate and bring on new options. But I also believe that is the beauty of having riders on these contracts, because a lot of that risk is offset by those life policies. So we're not having to increase rider premiums as much, because we can handle some of that risk up front using those life insurance policies. So it's definitely helped us, being hybrid, asset-based, whatever you want to call us. It's definitely helped us versus taking all the risk day one, dollar one with traditional type of policies.
Got it. All right, Ramona, let's keep moving on this.
All right, let's keep moving. Let's see here. So what we're looking at here very quickly is, since we'd already established that the majority of the time, 50% of the time, chronic illness riders are the most popular, this pie chart is simply saying, well, there are two types of chronic illness riders in the marketplace. And this is what I was saying, which kind are you selling? If you don't know what you're selling, then how can your clients know what they are buying? That you can see very quickly, 86% of the time is the type of chronic illness rider that has no upfront charge. So the charge is determined at the time of acceleration. They are by far the most prevalent in the market. The other 14% of the time, there is an upfront charge for the chronic illness rider. Just to be very simple and get to the point, kind of use a logic fact pattern here. If you don't know how much something costs until you accelerate it, if you don't know what the charge is for something until you accelerate it, this means by definition, you don't know how much of the benefit is available, right? And so these free chronic illness riders, and I'm using that word incredibly loosely because they are not free, but these free chronic illness riders where there is no charge until acceleration, if you don't know what the charge is, then by definition, you don't know what the benefit is. So for example, you have a $500,000 death benefit, and then based on your age, your gender, your life expectancy, the severity of your condition, is it a permanent chassis, is it a term chassis, what the premiums paid are, what the cash value is, the discounting rate the insurance company is assuming. So based on all these factors, you got a $500,000 policy. It could be for you that when you go to accelerate, you are able to accelerate 400,000. If you are able to accelerate 400,000, first of all, that's quite impressive, because all these years you paid zero in premium and you're able to accelerate 400,000, which means that it cost you 100 grand. That's the charge to accelerate that $500,000 policy, and then the policy is extinguished. But keep in mind, it could also mean that when you go to accelerate based on your age, your gender, severity of condition, all those factors, it could also mean that you're able to accelerate 50,000, which means it costs you 450 grand, and then the policy is extinguished. Now, certainly the policy holder doesn't have to accelerate. It's their choice. They can keep the policy in force and simply not do that. So that was, the $1 million question I started off with, is that you need to know which of these riders you're offering to your client. Are you selling the kind with an upfront premium where there is a known and predictable benefit? There is an upfront charge, and there is a known and predictable benefit where if you have a $500,000 death benefit, the entire 500,000 can be accelerated. Is that the kind you're selling? Or are you selling the kind where it depends? The amount that's eligible to be accelerated depends on various factors. Now, real quickly, and I'll end here, Steve, I'm not saying any of these riders are bad. I'm just saying, are you appropriately managing expectations on how they work? And if you are an advisor or insurance professional and you've been lumping them in all in the same boat, and you've been telling all the clients that all the time you can accelerate 500 grand, I would just encourage you during the annual reviews you have with your clients to get an in-force illustration with the client. Give them a copy, document your files, and show that how at different ages the amount eligible to accelerate changes.
Yep, that's helpful. So here's what I'm hearing, Ramona, that 30% of all life sales include some type of living benefit rider. When we look out to 22 and beyond, I think that's going to continue. Few carriers that are coming in. We're not at liberty to share which ones at this point, but we expect 2 to 3 carriers to be coming into this market. A lot of pressure on these carrier partners with respect to interest rates. So we've seen a move to some indexed and VUL options. Suitability is critical. That's what I'm hearing in the last point here, is that who, what, where, why, when. You know, the good news is we've got all kinds of options and lots of different types of products, whether it's on a UL or a whole life chassis, whether it's a qualified rider or a chronic illness rider. But we've got to know as professionals where to put somebody and why, and be able to substantiate our recommendation over time. Ramona, anything you want to finish with, or any final thoughts?
No, I definitely agree. The client's risk profile matters a great deal in terms of what underlying chassis that you select. I agree with that 100%. Another general trend that we've seen in this same drinking the low interest rate, water that was described, we're seeing a trend away from some of the guarantees where less of a guaranteed return of premium, right. Or, you get it at a later time where you get a lower percentage. So that is because most consumers are actually more interested in the long-term care benefit pool, right. Less interested perhaps in the return of premium. So less guarantees and more focus on the long-term care benefit. And who knows, Steve, from a trending perspective, just like you said, we've got a couple of insurers that have filed their products. I think everyone in the insurance industry is familiar with John Hancock's Vitality, right? A wellness program. It would be interesting if we started, to see that in some sort of long-term care solution. Don't know, but it certainly would be interesting.
Yeah, so that's where I want to jump over to. Poor Matt's been sitting there nodding his head the whole time and hasn't talked. So Matt, I'm sorry, man. Talk to us about wellness benefits. John Hancock is an innovator with respect to wellness benefits. Talk to us about Vitality. What is it? How does this thing work? And does it have qualified long-term care rider applicability with your product line?
Now,
Sure,
before
yeah.
you do, Matt, Ramona, maybe you could stop sharing your screen at this point. We could see Matt. Thanks.
No problem. Yeah, so thanks, Steve. So I think the big piece here is, I think, just before I dive into it, I think it's just important to just level set for those who may be joining us today, kind of what Vitality fundamentally is. So simply put, John Hancock Vitality is a health and well-being rider that sits alongside a John Hancock insurance policy. It fundamentally just does 2 things. It enables and it incentivizes. So it enables the insured to actually seize and take control over a portion of their policy. And it enables them to take steps towards whatever their important goals happen to be. If it's living a longer, healthier life, it enables them to manage and influence their risk. Second, it then incentivizes them with rewards and incentives to drive that previously mentioned enablement. So those incentives are premium savings in upwards of 25%, and rewards through retailers, through the relationships that we have built through the program, such as Apple, Amazon, Hotels.com, and others. Now, I think where it applies particularly strongly with the long-term care market is that premium savings conversation. The fact that you actually have control over the policy's performance by opting to engage in the wellness platform, you're able to actually reduce the overall charges in the contract, essentially. And that's a great way to mitigate any additional cost that a long-term care rider may have on the policy. So if I'm able to save upwards of 25%, just using rough math, adding a long-term care rider could add anywhere between 10, 15, 20% to the overall premium solve. So it's a really great way to mitigate that additional charge while providing the consumer fundamentally an additional benefit, being the wellness platform, all the rewards and incentives that come along with that. And that then really begs the question as, why is this important? And at the end of the day, I don't care if we're talking about standalone long-term care or life insurance, fundamentally, the customer experience, so far as it comes to insurance, is pretty poor. right? You go through an underwriting process, and then the carrier reinforces the sale by sending you a bill and a privacy notice every year. That's not a winning formula for a relationship between a carrier and a consumer, but Vitality really appends that entire experience and changes it to one that they're actually getting engagement and positive touch points and actual physical incentives throughout the year. And this goes above and beyond the health that actually is being done. So actually earlier in October, Vitality, in conjunction with RAND Europe, shared their results of a really large global study. And the data is quite compelling because it's actually suggesting that there is a widening gap in our lifespan to our health span. So in fact, the study is actually predicting that just here in the States, Americans are going to spend an average of 13 and a half years in ill health. So this really is just confirming the importance of long-term care planning, but also in how preventative health is really the way to helping our mutual customers live longer, healthier lives is critical in that conversation.
So Matt, here's a question I have for you. So let's use me as an example, right?
Sure.
I'm a healthy 47-year-old male, and I'm into fitness. I'm a former
Sure.
athlete and I'm into it. But it's hard to change somebody else's behavior. Somebody that's not into fitness, but into buying long-term care insurance or buying a life policy with a qualified long-term care rider. So from an experience standpoint, are you seeing that you guys are changing behavior?
Yeah, so not only, I think that's a key thing when it comes to what we're doing with Vitality and just wellness platforms in general, is oftentimes people look at it through just the lens of their own experience, much like long-term care planning. You look at it only until you feel like you know it. But the key piece here is Vitality operates on a number of different tenets. Some of it is physical health, some of it is preventative health, some of it is nutrition, some of it is mental health. So you can kind of pick and choose the path you decide you want to for your health journey. But we launched Vitality in April of 2015. So we're 6 years out, and we're actually seeing positive health outcomes as a result of engagement throughout the program, with roughly a third of registered customers reporting improvements of unhealthy cholesterol into a healthy cholesterol range, another third with an unhealthy blood glucose reading being brought into a healthy range, and then additionally, about half of our customer base with either improvements in body mass index or improvements in their blood pressure readings. So the proof is in the pudding. When we first talked about Vitality, when we came out with it, was almost cerebral. Like, oh, Vitality's been doing this globally for decades in a number of different markets across the world. But now we actually have the proof in the pudding here in the States, and we're actually seeing those health outcomes come to bear and really starting to show signs of actually tilting that mortality and morbidity needle a little bit.
So interesting. We're also hearing about caregiving and elder care benefits that might be attached to policies on a forward-going basis. I know Ramona and I have talked about that and thinking it would be a great idea in addition to the Vitality type of benefit. But Tony, talk to us about, I've got a nationwide policy. What comes along with it beyond the insurance dollars?
Yeah, we have a program called Silver Brick Road. It's currently available on all of our Life with LTC products all the way back until 1999. And it's also available on all of our Care Matters products. And that program, it's really just designed to help the caregiver or the spouse or the child come time of claim. And that's just a simple description on that platform is how can we provide resources and help during that time of claim. And we try to make everything as simple as possible. The reason we're a cash indemnity product is we want to get as much benefit as possible out at claim time. But this Silver Brick Road platform, and it's a platform that we're continuing to modify and improve on. And as we do, we make those modifications available to previous policy owners. But it's really just to provide benefits time of claim.
Yeah. Michelle, you've been in distribution forever. If I'm out there, I'm an advisor, and I want to talk to my clients about a OneAmerica plan, forget about the product for a second. How much are you talking about the care advocacy, the care coordination versus the pricing in the product?
I mean, both are going to be important to them, but sometimes, you know, when we're talking to consumers, they don't know what they don't know. So they don't know where to ask. And it really, they depend on their financial professional to know these things. That's why they've hired them, right? Because they don't know these things. So both are important. Of course, it has to be affordable and it has to be a great benefit to them. But of course, talking about how a lot of the pressure is going to be relieved on loved ones at the time of claim is extremely important, because most of us have lived through that and we've seen what's happened. Families can be in complete chaos. They don't know what to do, who to call. Oftentimes these policies may have been sold you know, a decade or two prior. They don't know where to start. So making sure that they have all of the information in a great packet. Where do you go? What do I do? And then, you know, we have a claims concierge team where we do everything for them. I call the folks that we've hired Grandma Apple Pie, and I probably shouldn't say it that way, but when you call, these people are you know, hired for that particular purpose, to be able to calm someone that is scared and nervous and concerned about their loved one, to be able to walk them through and let them know, we've got you, we'll take you through this, we'll handhold through the entire process. And I think that that is truly what we want for our loved ones anyway, is to make sure that when it comes time to pay, someone's going to be there not only to pay, but also to make it as easy as possible.
That's helpful. The other thing I'm hearing about is companies that are going and working with manufacturers to help reduce claims, fall prevention and things like that, in addition to the Vitality sort of program on the front end or along the way. This is more companies going directly to these companies with large in-force blocks saying, how do we help you? How do we prevent people from filing claims or going on these types of claims? So I think you're going to see more of that in the future. I want to shift over to how we market and how we distribute. I'm going to start with you, Matt. We saw big increases in life insurance during COVID for millennials and Xers, but it was more term life insurance, not long-term care. So when you look at the products out there today, do we have a product for Gen Xers? Do we have a product for millennials? Are we going to connect with those types, or is this still a senior market product?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you're seeing, you know, from an LTC perspective, right, a major uptick as far as rider election for different generations and demographics. I'm sure I'm an outlier, both myself and my husband, you know, with long-term care riders, and we're, you know, I'm 42 and he's 39. Like, it's probably very much an outlier in that perspective. Yeah, but your point is quite powerful. I mean, there's obviously, you know, last year and the year prior, really, right, like COVID spotlit awareness when it comes to people's baseline health and focusing on those things. But, you know, when it comes to election, I think that, you know, understanding if you are buying a term contract, I don't ultimately care if you're doing it from a purely a cost perspective, but conversions are a big part of that narrative for a lot of people and a lot of insurance producers when it comes to that. And that's why you oftentimes see the fact that you can convert, depending on the carrier. John Hancock, I know you can on our contract, convert to a permanent product and elect the long-term care rider. Now, you do have to go through underwriting for the LTC portion of that conversion, but the fact that that door is still open, it's really only more of a morbidity underwriting through that point in time versus that's there. Whereas if you were to elect perhaps a number of the fintech startups that are just doing direct to consumer, you know, digital processes with no real conversion opportunity with a living benefit at that point in time. So if you are having conversations with either millennial or younger, even Gen Xers that are oftentimes very self-sufficient, you know, doing their own research online directly, preferring to work directly with a carrier, those conversations and highlighting the nuances of the conversion opportunities from the carriers, and I'm sure the other carrier partners on the panel as well have similar narratives for their companies as well. But I think it's really important to make sure that you investigate what those opportunities are, particularly for your younger insureds who may not be thinking about long-term care planning in their current paradigm.
So Michelle, as it relates to the buyer? I know in the traditional world, we saw the average purchase age going down, 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 and then kind of plateaued, and you're at like 57, 58. What does it look like at OneAmerica?
Well, that has definitely changed throughout the years. As Ramona had mentioned, hybrid, asset-based, whatever you want to call it, in the early days was primarily single premium, and that's where we kind of fell in those early days. And it has evolved as the market has changed. And there's a handful of things that we can contribute to that. And by the way, that average age had stayed pretty consistently at 67 for single premium. And it's just the phase of life that they're in. They have now saved, they have emergency buckets, IRA options, which we offer. So, they had saved up quite a bit through retirement. But as the world had kind of moved a little bit, traditional long-term care started having some of their issues, and people were looking for alternatives. I think a handful of things happen. Number one, we've got Gen Xers that are watching their baby boomer parents go through this, and they have information at their fingertips. So they're seeing this and they're saying, I don't want to go through this. I'm a Gen Xer. I just bought my second policy. I do a stacking strategy, to fit my lifestyle. So that goes to the second thing. I think there's a lot of different options that are customizable now to fit someone's particular situation versus making them fit into, one box. But I also think that some of the industry has changed quite a bit in how we, as the long-term care industry, have supported financial professionals. For the longest time, it was primarily sold through insurance folks, maybe LTC specialists, folks that understood the insurance world, not as much into investments or and so forth. So now that language has gotten out there and people understand, we have to make sure we put plans in place that protect the entire plan versus just it being an insurance benefit for older folks. People understand that these types of contracts pay out for cancers. That happens at any age, strokes. That happens at any age. So I think that there's more information from the financial professionals, but then also at their fingertips via phones and technology.
Tony, Matt mentioned all these fintech startups that are, really well funded, where you can get the life insurance up to $2 million or more without doing anything, without the lengthy underwriting process. What do we as an industry have to do for more Gen Xers to buy this type of benefit? Beyond it fitting in their price range and their budget, what does the experience have to look like?
Yeah, that's a good question. And maybe I'll take a step back for 1 second. This question around generational, I look at this as kind of progressive. So there are opportunities to purchase, maybe term with some sort of chronic critical, those types of components, but also life with LTC, at maybe a younger age that you're starting to look at that. And then you want to look at, or people are starting to look at maybe that older age, or, in Matt's case, the 40, it started in your 40s. You're looking at true LTC coverage and really what's that need. It's not really a generational component. It's really, I like that stair step approach that Michelle talked about and how you can progress with these products through that. And then Steve, to answer your question, the process around selling these products has to get simpler. The fact that some applications are 60 to 100 pages, and that's all of our faults here on the call, we have to find a way to simplify that application process and also simplify that Part B as well. And, we're doing a lot of things right now, and I think COVID has really accelerated that to find the simplest application process we can and to do as much of that as possible digitally, really partnering with some of those fintechs that you talked about, Steve.
That's great. Ramona, I want to go back to you, and we'll take a couple more minutes. I know there's a ton of questions that came in. We will have time or leave time for them. But with respect to COVID, we talked about awareness, Ramona, in terms of that was the slap you in the face moment where we're all worried about our acute health right now and then our long-term health. But there were a lot of carrier changes too. From an underwriting perspective, Ramona, have things gotten back to normal?
I think for a lot of companies, and of course they're here, they can speak to that. But a lot of companies, things have gotten back to normal. They have lifted the age restrictions. So I think that's a good thing, definitely. In terms of what was just spoken to, I'd say in the last 5 years, I've seen more improvements in process with the hybrid link benefit products than I've seen including just regular life insurance than I've seen in the previous 10 years. And then of course, COVID accelerated that, right? Because you didn't want all that in-person contact. And what I've taken the liberty of doing here, Steve, not to talk about, but just a resource for all the callers here, since CLTC has sponsored me on this call. This is on the CLTC website from the Winter Digest. Since I touched on all the living benefit riders, if you go to the CLTC website, the Winter Digest, it gives you an explanation of the sales applications. Now, if you have your CLTC designation, it's free. If not, there's a slight charge for that, but take a look. All the different riders, if there's underwriting, if you need continuing education, and what the sales applications are. Plus, if I can give another plug very quickly, Steve, from CLTC, again, for members, those of you that have your CLTC designation, take a look at this incredible comprehensive continuum that CLTC put together. And notice on the left of the continuum is pure long-term care insurance, traditional long-term care. So if your focus is long-term care, and on the right of the continuum is pure life insurance. And every solution in between gives you a description. And again, when you get this presentation, you can get a link to it, plus the client applications. I'm not going to go through it, Steve, but I just want you to know, for all your callers here that's participating, the pros and the cons of every single solution, which I think is incredible.
I think this is so helpful. I mean, we get questions every single day. What's the best fit? And we're not trying to be evasive when we say it depends. So this is a great kind of a guide to what the best fit might be. We're not going to have enough time to talk about the Washington Cares Fund and legislative activities around long-term care. I think we're also over it, and all of us, just given the surge of business that we all saw. But I will tell you, during this Impact Week, NAFA is front and center as it relates to all things legislative activities. I can tell you that Carol devotes much of her time, as do many other professionals at NAFA, to ensuring that long-term care insurance has a place in our industry, and certainly with all these state legislative initiatives, that the conversation around combining long-term care insurance with a state program is alive and well. And I sit on many of these calls and these industry groups, and I can tell you that NAFA's taken a leading role in all of this for us. So thank you, Carol, for the work that you're doing. So last thing I want to end up with before we go to Q&A is just predictions. What's 2022 going to look like from a long-term care perspective? Matt, you start.
Yeah, I mean, I think, to the point that's been made, right? Like, there's obviously been an increased focus on insurance planning as a result of COVID. I know, at least from a Hancock perspective, the first half of this year, from a results perspective, we're up 21% over 19. So if you ignore 20 and the challenges within 20, we're actually notably up over 19. And we see no reason that we shouldn't continue to see growth within that in 2022. But to Tony's point that he made earlier, I think you will see more and more carriers move into that digitization space. I know we've recently launched our electronic application through iPipeline, where we're actually leveraging a digital part 2, so there's no telephone interview required. So you're seeing more carriers go into that technology forward space with the ability for an instant decision on the spot. I think you'll see more carriers push to that type of experience, because not everyone is returned to office. Not a lot of customers are willing to do face-to-face and come into the city if they need to, that type of thing. So I think you're going to continue to see a lot more technology being leveraged throughout the industry, not just from a life and LTC perspective, but through all aspects of the insurance industry as a whole.
Well said. Michelle?
Very much the same. I think a couple of things. The interest rate market is still going to force insurance companies to be pretty creative on some things. So I think that's still going to go into 2022. I think legislatively, I think there's A lot of folks are focused on increased taxes, and I think that that's going to change behavior for a lot of folks and bring a lot of attention. And then, of course, Washington State and then other states, talking about that and pursuing that. But Matt's correct. Moving into anything e-policy, e-app, we've done the same, and wow, it's made a huge difference for the entire experience, for consumers, for financial professionals, as well as the company and our efficiency in getting things done quickly.
Tony.
Sure. I mean, I'd reiterate both the things that Matt and Michelle said, especially around the electronic process. We learned from Washington that we need to have a better electronic process, and we need, we're launching that digital Part B for Care Matters this month as well. So, the electronic process is definitely something that we'll be focused on in 22. But another area, and Michelle touched on it, is what just happened in Washington. I think we really need to start looking at these other 12 states, especially, California and Oregon. I think they're high on that list.
Yeah.
What they're going to do and how to get in front of that over the course of 2022, I think is very important for anyone on this call who doesn't know what's going on in their state and how it compares to what's going on in Washington. I highly encourage you to get educated on what's going on in your state and be able to be that person that your clients can go to and actually get an answer from when they start to ask these questions. Something we ran into in Washington is a lot of advisors just didn't know what was going on until it was too late. And then carriers started to make changes, restrictions, and you just couldn't get coverage.
Yeah.
So get ahead of that. And we've got a window now, take advantage of it. And 22, I believe, is the window for those states.
Agreed. Ramona?
I'm just gonna, reinforce what was said, and I'm having fun here looking at the questions.
All right. We're going to get to those questions. My prediction, increased consciousness about long-term care planning, continued growth in the living benefit sale, a lot of worksite opportunities and success that we're going to see, and certainly tailwinds behind the Washington conversations with these 12 other states. And lastly, I think I'm going to consistently score under 90 in golf this year or in 22. So we're going to open up for some Q&A now. Let's see here. Other than Thrivent, are there any other carriers offering partnership plans in Indiana? I don't know. I'm sorry. We'll get an answer to that one. Ramona, they're asking you who are the carriers, but I'm sure you can't share who are entering the hybrid marketplace.
So I think that's considered public once it's been filed.
Okay.
It's just a matter of when it's approved and when the insurance company decides to launch. So that would be Thrivent and Northwestern Mutual.
Very cool. Great names, great companies. Are there any hybrids that have secondary guarantees? Ramona?
Yeah, so I don't know that you see companies marketed that way, but certainly you have the hybrid linked benefit extension of benefit that they have guaranteed premiums, guaranteed cash value, guaranteed death benefit, and guaranteed extension of benefits. So if that's not secondary guarantee, I don't know what is.
Yeah. Michelle, how come OneAmerica was able to corner the market when it comes to the joint options?
Well, we filed a patent many years ago. So we had a patent on the joint, and it was really the algorithm, because you can do joint life policies and you can do long-term care. It was really the algorithm that created that morbidity mortality risk. And so that was why.
Cool.
But that patent expired, right?
It did. Yep. It
Yeah.
sure. Well, 2022, the patent expires.
Okay.
Got it.
I could be wrong on that. Ramona, you may be right on that. Let me check on that. But if it's not already expired, it's coming up.
Ramona, what carriers offer hybrid annuity plus long-term care products? We didn't talk about those.
So Michelle could certainly promote her company, OneAmerica, Global Atlantic, and then a smaller company, Guaranteed Income.
Got it. A lot of nice compliments in terms of some of the things that our guests were sharing. Let me see. I think that did it for the questions. So again, I want to thank our panelists here for just great information. Hopefully you got that two things that you can use in your business or your practice today. Carol, I'll turn it back over to you.
Well, first I want to thank everybody. This was very informative. I think a lot of what we talked about speaks well to the health of our industry. We're looking for big changes, but big changes happen with small steps. So I appreciate that each one of the carriers, and Ramona being so well versed in all of the details of this, were able to kind of say to us, this is a focus that our company is having. There is a lot of synergy, but there's also individual targets for each one of the company. I thought, Steve, your questions about generational were important, because you figure that the youngest, or I should say the oldest millennial, turned 40. And so we don't want to ignore all of these new generations coming up. And you know how they say, depending on where you came from. Well, each of those generations have a very different outlook towards health, wellness, and long-term care, especially given the longevity that they are looking at. Although, Matt, that was interesting to hear that even though we're living longer, we're not necessarily living healthier. I also want to thank our audience and our attendees. We had a lot of people during this session, and it is good to know that you took an hour out of your day. And I hope that you enjoyed the session as much as we did. And we look forward to seeing you on 1 hour, Power Hour, as we call it, every day this week. Again, thank you to the panel. Thank you, Steve, for moderating, and thank you, attendees, for coming. Bye.